Hey, everybody, David Bloom with NextTMT Talks. Roku goes on sale, maybe. So who's buying? We're talking about it. SpaceX definitely went on sale at a price the occasional skeptic might suggest was a bit over the top. Fox and Telemundo are hitting the jackpot with World Cup fans. Google is dominating web traffic, while Peter Thiel and his billionaire buddies try to salve the bruises all over their snowflake egos with a made-up kangaroo court. Are there reasons to object to objection? With that, Dan, let's get started. I guess the biggest news was the intimation that there might be someone out there sniffing around Roku, the company that is the gateway to more TV homes than any in the United States, with a good-sized audience both in Canada and Mexico as well. I will say I am going to be interviewing the CMO of Roku at this week's Stream TV show, which you and I will be covering feverishly. So it should be a fun conversation with him.
Yeah.
But what's your thoughts on who might buy and why?
Well, I'm looking forward to streaming prom, as we also call it. There's a few invite-only events that...
There are some things that are invite only. Fine, big shock. That's every show ever.
Well, it's the
Of
only
any
time of the year you
size.
can see Alan Wolk and Evan Shapiro. When else are you to see those guys? I mean,
They're rather retiring and shy and quiet and never on stage otherwise. Let's them both. And I'm a
catch you next
big
time. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of
Also,
Alan. I've worked with him in the past and hold him in high regard. But yes, they're not overexposed, but they are fully exposed.
moderately exposed. Anyway,
Yes.
Roku, the streaming company, this is not the first time they've been rumored to be sold to somebody. That happens frequently. It's not
it's a good asset. There's a reason why it's plausible, right?
It's not the first time it's been market valued at about $220 billion.
Oof.
Or, that's not it. $20 billion. I'm sorry. Had my little moment.
$220 million.
Yeah, don't give me an investment banking. I need to be kept away from the balance sheets for sure.
It's a very expensive dongle. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
but not that expensive. It's still a good bargain. So
somewhere around $21 billion. I mean, they've been up, they've been down. Take my word, they've been around to quote the immortal ZZ Top. But they're not asking for much. This time it's a little bit different. They haven't been back up off the ropes this well since February 2022. They've righted the balance sheets. They've really fine-tuned their advertising engine. Investment analysts love what they're doing right now.
But Howdy looks like a nice little success. They're $2 or $2.99 a month. It's a fast channel that you pay for, which sounds crazy, but it's working for them.
Right, over 1 million 9 months in. That's impressive.
Yeah.
Ever the kind of long-term entrenched dogma that is Roku remains. They have no headway in markets like Europe, Asia. They're massive in North America, Canada, and Mexico too, but beyond that, they're not really a thing.
Turns out, I just wanted to point this out because I know it's a little rough here with the World Cup, but Canada and Mexico also in North America. It's just everywhere else in the entire planet. They got no penetration in Antarctica whatsoever.
Yeah,
but it's like, where do they go? How do they compete? Right? That's the big issue. Where's their growth?
Right. Okay, so you've got long-term limitations. It's not just their regional footprint. It is also the matter of the competition. There's a view that eventually Amazon, Google, now Walmart, which bought Vizio, will surpass them. And your 100 million active user homes, primarily in North America, are only as good as the next device upgrade cycle. It sure does now, but it could change over the course of the 5 years pretty dramatically. The kind of tvOS flavor people have driving their living room. So now is a good time to sell. Rich Greenfield, the analyst, speculated on 10 companies that can potentially buy Roku. He sees a premium purchase price of up to $30 billion, which is not cheap. For a company like Comcast, that would be high leverage. For pretty much any traditional media company, it would be a lot of debt. Facebook or Meta and or Netflix looked interesting to the folks at Lightshed, Rich's outfit. In the case of Meta, they've clawed their way back in terms of viewpoint of the Trump administration. So they would have a regulatory from that end, they'd have an easier time. That's the viewpoint.
Well, he also talked about some companies that I think are a little surprising. AppLovin, which kind of makes sense in some ways because it extends what AppLovin does, very big SaaS model provider at a time when it's tough to be a SaaS provider in this vibe coding era. And the Trade Desk, which has been trying to get Ventura off the ground, its own independent TVOS. Well, here's one. It might actually, that actually might make sense in a way that doesn't feel duplicative. Or, if
It's
Netflix or Disney or those guys buy it, it feels to me like once you've done that, it's no longer Switzerland, right?
right. But it does have something, and it does have, as Greenfield put it, the set-top box, cable box control of all those living rooms. They control the gateway to which you watch, how stuff's monetized, the advertising, the data collection, etc. So it's an asset to anybody. In the case of the Trade Desk, their stock is so devalued right now.
Battered,
Yeah.
battered. Yeah, it is down.
A
Way,
year
way,
ago, it
way
made
down.
sense. Now
Yeah,
it doesn't. So
right.
it's going to be
Well,
interesting.
it'll be really interesting. But like then you sit around, and of course, this is what we have to do now. It's like if somebody went to buy it, could they get the deal done? Depending on their relationship with Brendan Carr, Trump's Department of Justice, et cetera. So could they get the deal done? And I think that's like Comcast. Trump's not a big fan of Comcast because they still own an independent news organization called NBC.
I don't think he's a fan of Netflix either. That
Right.
Paxton dude
He
out of
wasn't a big one. Yeah. Right.
I think they're viewed as the woke streaming company. I don't think I know those congressional hearings when they were still in the running for Warner Brothers a few months ago made that pretty clear.
Right. Well, Paxton's just trying to throw mud at anything that could possibly activate some tiny corner of his base at a time when he's actually trailing. And that's a time honored tradition in Texas politics, is a thing that I used to cover and saw a lot of mud flying. Even back then, it just wasn't as at hyper speed as it is now.
It seems like
But you
Netflix
look at,
is doing its best just to say, hey,
yeah,
we're politically neutral. We don't want any part of this. But I think they're viewed as, okay, if you're neutral, you're against us. You're a
right.
major media outlet that we want to control. And until we can have a foothold, you're fair game as Comcast is, as Disney is, in
Right.
terms of regulatory
It,
leverage.
that's very true. But which leaves to me the interesting idea of Fox. In 2019, Daddy Rupert sold off $71 billion worth of Fox, got small. The word back then was he didn't think his boys, his daughter wasn't really in the picture at that point, didn't think his two boys, who was still talking to both of them at that point, were really set up, particularly Lachlan, to run a giant media company. And he wanted to skinny it down to a size that he thought Lachlan could handle. And that was the word. And then, of course, they set off a great HBO TV show.
I thought it was always
But
just divesting assets that had no future, like regional sports networks.
well, they got rid of those, but they also got rid of all of their broadcasts. I mean, not all their broadcasts. They got rid of all their, it was 71 billion. So they got rid of their movie studio. They got rid of their TV production studio. They got rid of a bunch of stuff. They got rid of their lot. They divested of a lot of stuff, a lot of their satellite operations in Europe. $71 billion is not just, some regional sports networks, by the way.
Right.
So though those did end up selling for $10 billion in a misbegotten deal to Sinclair back in the day, there were assets that weren't going anywhere. But it's not like he had the New York Post among the things being sold to Disney, which hasn't made money since Alexander Hamilton, I don't think. But when they got out of that, it was skinning this company down to a much smaller size. And that's how Dana Walden ended up over at Disney and almost got the top gig because she was the co-head of TV for Fox. They got rid of all their, the Fantastic Four and their other Marvel related franchise assets that they had and so on and so forth. Their whole library went out the door. So to some extent, all that was stuff doesn't have a future, but it does have a future, particularly folded into Disney. It's just that they got small. And now Lachlan, who's very definitely in line to be running everything now that they've settled out the whole probate court mess in Nevada with $1 billion payoff to each of his three oldest siblings. now he's probably looking to rebuild some stuff and actually construct this company for the future. Tubi's doing great, right? So Roku comes in, that feels like more Tubi plus an OS in 100 million households.
Can he
Right?
leverage a 20, I don't know, I'm just pulling this out of my ass, a $25 billion purchase? Murdoch?
Well, based on how they're doing with the World Cup, maybe so. I think Moffett-Nathanson had a report saying that based on what they're seeing in the initial week of or 4 or 5 days of the World Cup, they're projecting $50 million to $150 million in profit off of just Fox's televising of all the World Cup games. Telemundo over to CNBC is doing great too. I mean, they're breaking records both for the U.S. and the Mexico opening day games of several kinds. I think we've discovered that you don't need to be really big to get ridiculous help if you have friends in high places. It's not hard to imagine that Rupert and Lachlan might know some people, say, in the Middle East
Saudi Arabia?
who might be up for stuff or, other places. He has friends in many places. He's been operating on a global stage for a very long time. And Lachlan's a known commodity, but it's still his daddy's show at the end of things. So I don't think finding $25 billion that overwhelming for Fox, but it's a big lift, I think, for them based on their current size.
I see, but he has a streaming technology backbone that it's well proliferated in places like Europe and could make the deals you need to make Roku a global thing.
Yeah, but there's no way. Disney absolutely correct on all that. But do you think, again, who's going to get a deal through?
New CEO, that could be his defining. It could be his Pixar, Star Wars moment, the big defining purchase.
Yeah, fans will love that. It's the sort of thing that makes them sign up for the D23 event. Oh my God, we're going to get a new Roku announcement. Maybe not.
It's not IP, but there's some good cooking shows on the Roku channel. So
I know you're a big fan of anything that has to do with the TVOS. It makes you kind of quiver in a very uncomfortable way. But that being said, yes, important, really important, particularly as we go to Stream TV show in Denver this week. 25 billion is it's a big nut for these guys. And Disney is still paying off that $71 billion Fox acquisition. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
Speaking of not interesting to see where it goes, because we kind of knew all along, it didn't take DOJ
to the moon, Alice.
It didn't take them long to say yes to Paramount, Warner Brothers. That had to be
right. Yeah.
I mean, no consumer harm here, just two movie studios
consolidating and leaving us for, yes, and probably laying off thousands of people. Not that we have to worry about layoffs because it'll all be just rationalization. Yeah, they did. And of course, they dumped the news on Friday afternoon when you dump news that's liable to have blowback. But it's also not surprising news that came out. Now, this is, I'm starting to feel a little bit like one of those guys in Waiting for Godot for Rob Bonta and the states AGs, the other states AGs, to file whatever the hell they're going to file. It's like, what you guys waiting for? This may be the thing that opens the door for the next step. It may be that the way legal processes often work, you've got to do X before you can file against X to do something.
Yeah, we talked about that before. But at the same time, Ellison's can just go, well, we've already started down the road. Why we just brought the accounting department in last week. We already fired a bunch of people and hired a bunch of people.
It's hard to find accountants. It's hard.
We changed business cards already.
Yeah. Printing costs through the roof, particularly with the not a war apparently being not solved today. Yeah, they could try and fast track some of this stuff, but they can't because they still got Europe, as we wrote, I think, in the midweek. They got Australia, but Britain's begun its formal review. The EU is beginning it. So they really can't begin merging things without getting into some problems. So
what does Kalshi
we'll see.
say?
Kalshi, I have not checked because I'm not really worried about the opinions of clueless people betting small amounts of money, hoping, or those possessed with some inside information, which is difficult to have when it's a issue that's spread across multiple jurisdictions and multiple continents. So
That kind of blind investor is what drives our economy at this point. Our richest man, his fortune was built on that kind of faith.
he's, if not unique, close to unique. I can't think of another executive. And Jack Welch had a pretty good run at GE, but I can't think of another executive in the last 30 years who commanded a fealty that was so ardent among investors. And Welch, at least, and it turns out some of his processes were kind of hooey. That
Right.
Six Sigma stuff wasn't necessarily great. And then as soon as he was gone, they started deconstructing GE into three far more profitable companies. If you happen to have pieces of GE since then, you've done really well. Like Vernova's through the roof. It's like a 10x or 12x from where it was when they split it up. But it's hard to think of anybody who's had the same level of retail investment. And some of that is a function of Elon Musk is a product of the Robin Hood generation of investors. So he gets all the bros really excited as they're investing and doing prediction markets on Robinhood. But he gets them excited with fractional investments and all kinds of stuff. Now they're doing perpetual futures is the latest thing. 0-day futures is another one. There's a whole bunch of mechanics that are really making me uncomfortable. I feel a lot like collateralized debt obligations in 2007. It's like we don't know what's in these CDOs, and oh, they're supposed to protect risk, but no, in fact, they hide risk, and all of a sudden stuff happens, and it's a problem.
Well, you
So,
saw that figure that was in the S1, the prospectus for the entire merger that was
yep,
filed late in May. Total addressable demand was listed.
market, the TAM, total addressable market. Yeah,
Right. If everything was pegged to the max, the needles at the extreme right of the gauge,
yeah,
you've got revenue of $28.5 trillion.
yeah,
Considering the US GDP is, what,
31.
$24 trillion? That's a
Oh,
lot of
that's
dough.
right. Yeah, it's a lot of dough. Yeah. Our debt's 31. Sorry. Our debt's 31 trillion, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, SpaceX lost nearly $5 billion last year.
And
Uh,
that's driving a lot of this. But AI, potential TAM on AI is 26 trillion of the 28.5 trillion. By the way, Grok still remains well behind the others in terms of what it's achieving. But as people have said, it's betting on the come. I included in our newsletter this week a lengthy, very detailed breakdown of that prospectus and the 100-page addendum from Niswath Damodaran, the NYU Stern professor, who's known as the king of valuation. And shall we say, as he said on a short interview in the otherwise breathless CNBC coverage over the back end of last week leading up to the IPO, he actually said, it's kind of hooey. It's not
lot
really
of
based
drawings
on
and
stuff.
pictures that, like,
Yeah. Actually, no. A lot of photos of really pretty rocket ships.
right.
Lots of photos of rocket ships. And then some really weak links between this that leads to this. And a soaring story, not actually backed up by anything like, oh, reality. Now, this isn't the first time that on has painted a very pretty picture and people have bet on it. I would merely point out, remember his Solar City was his company, which ended up getting bought by Tesla because Solar City wasn't working out. And then Tesla bought it. And now Tesla's having problems. And that had to get bought by SpaceX because it's using Starlink to finance whatever it's got going. I mean, it's starting to feel a little there's businesses here. There's no doubt there's businesses here, but they haven't necessarily arrived at certainly at the valuations that he has promised in any way whatsoever.
Well, I want to be fair because, I mean, as we've talked about, he's done some extraordinary things, and beyond all the ketamine use and the erratic personality is some real intelligence and some real bold risk taking that has done some things that others have. That's true. But at the same time, when people like Elizabeth Warren pipe up that the valuation isn't supported by numbers, It gives too much control to Elon Musk. These are real concerns for investors, things that they should listen to. Bernie Sanders made the same rant.
Yeah.
And it's on a political level useful to say, hey, we have too many billionaires, now we have trillionaires, and wealth is too divided. And then you see the counter argument, folks like the Shark Tank guy, Kevin O'Leary, coming on Fox Business, diminishing Warren and Sanders as political opportunists at this point. I don't think so. And giving the typical spiel about Elon Musk being the value creator, the job creator, the guy who's creating new economies. You look at what he did with Twitter, he laid off 80% of the company. He has hired a lot of people. I think 160,000 people work for him, but he's gone through spells of dramatic restructuring, dramatic layoffs. He doesn't have a very good reputation as a manager for somebody to work for. You look at what the trajectory of companies like Tesla, it's not a great management acumen. What he did to it last year is still reflected in their stock price.
Right. They killed off 2 of their lines of cars. They don't have that many, and they killed off 2 of them. The Cybertruck remains a flop, its biggest buyer being companies owned by Elon Musk. So Tesla, which was it had more value than all the other car companies in the world combined. And right now it does not, and it's kind of hard to
Well, it's
justify,
still
but
vastly overvalued based on its earnings. I think it's like 300 to 1 or something in
yeah,
terms of.
it's yeah, the PE is crazy. I don't know what the PEG is, but the PE is crazy.
It's like crazy. You go to a shopping mall here. I saw this big display on a Tesla. Oh, I don't like Elon. I just like the car. Everybody has one of those. It's a successful consumer product, a really bold risk that has paid off, especially in a smog state like California. Again, from personal experience growing up here, I can tell you the air is much cleaner, despite the complaints about regulation and the price of our fuel. Things like electric cars will help us once they get to a certain scale and it actually makes sense. And the fact that Elon Musk was the first to make it a mass consumer product is a notable achievement. But the fact
Absolutely.
that,
And there's the charging network also. By the way, the PE ratio is 371. The price to earnings ratio is 371. So at a company valued at $1.5 trillion that was up 1% to over $400 over the weekend. They had a good earnings call, I guess. They didn't, but the deliveries have dropped over the last year and a half to 2 years. So yes, but he's also promised robotaxis. He said he'd have 1 million last year, I think it was. He said we'll have 1 million robotaxis on the road by the end of the year. And the reporter said 1 million. He says, yes, 1 million. And of course, he's nowhere close to that. They still have drivers in them. They're not robo-taxis. They're still being minded. They're still, I think, only in Austin. And it's a few thousand. So once again, it's huge promises, not quite delivered. Then he's got to come on to the next thing. Now, Starlink will be big, but as I point out in the newsletter, Globalstar got bought by Amazon. What does Globalstar do? Well, it's a satellite data provider that provides all the direct satellite to iPhone connections for Apple. That's not a bad one up. And then all of a sudden, Globalstar has this gigantic $3 trillion company backing it. And
yeah,
you don't have to think hard to see, oh, that could be a big deal. iPhones with satellite connectivity that's not Starlink.
is Dan Jones and NextTMT Networks, our new spinoff, noted on Tuesday last week. Jeff Bezos has a long way to go. Elon Musk has 10 million
Oh,
direct-to-device
yeah.
customers spread around the world, and
Yeah.
lots of satellites up there that Bezos doesn't have right now. So, I mean, the Globalstar purchase caught him up in a big way, but he still has a long way to go.
Absolutely. But the point is that it's an owner that has both a vision, the means to deliver satellites, now a provider with technology that's already tied into the most popular cell phone in the world and already providing service to that cell phone. You go, oh, so there's some resources and structures in place that could grow. So maybe that matters in terms of the TAM for Starlink. The only thing making money right now in this giant SpaceX deal.
Yeah, what did Kevin O'Leary say? If you've read the prospectus, you know you're buying a telco, which is it's Starlink is the only thing earning money right now. The rest of it's the future. You're betting on the best bet on
Yeah.
Earth, Elon Musk.
Well, the best for it off of Earth because it's low Earth orbit, it's going to Mars, it's, camps on the moon, extracting minerals that will then be slingshot and gravity wells out to Mars, etc. Which I might add aren't probably going to happen in the next couple of weeks. So you're betting long term. So if you're 70 and doing this, you're probably not going to see your money back. If you're 30, yeah, you got a good shot. But 70, not so much. But the fanboy network is large, and something like 30% of the buyers were retail investors, which is a remarkable number. So anyway,
In the near term, it gives Elon Musk, what, $80 billion to go out and do stuff and buy stuff. He could
yeah, they could
conceivably,
end up being like 80 billion. Yeah.
the big
They could
talk,
buy another election. Look at that. He could spend another $250 million
or
on, I don't know, JD Vance. So JD
you
Vance
won't need
isn't his guy.
elections anymore. The big talk around wireless earnings a few months ago or last month was that neither T-Mobile or AT&T or Verizon was going to do a MVNO deal or VMO deal with Starlink. They weren't going to give them the terrestrial radio tower wherewithal they need to not just reach rural areas, but reach big cities.
Mm.
If you have $80 billion show up in your bank account, you can buy one of those companies now. And I think it was Peter Sapino of Wolf Research suggested just that.
Yeah. Yeah, you might, maybe. I think more likely you buy EchoStar, which owns a chunk, like $10 billion worth of SpaceX stock after that whole forced divestiture. Maybe you buy them and whatever tower arrangements they have, because you can get that for like nickels. I mean, like actual nickels. And Charlie Ergen can finally go home and count his pennies because he probably has some and do something else. But I mean, that's the simple one. Maybe they could go and buy AT&T and all that, but that's like all your new capital to get one of those companies. And yes, it'll get waved through by the Trump administration, but I just think that's a big devotion of resources that will tank their stock because people will go,
Speaking of our holy sanctum of governance, what do you make of this Anthropic? First, the Trump administration and Pete Hegseth, the Pentagon, were complaining about Anthropic hoisting safety theater. They were too outwardly concerned about their products being used for the wrong reasons.
yeah,
And
David Sachs said that too. They were trying to basically they were calling for regulation just to block everybody else out because they were ahead. And then they were being sanctimonious about, oh, don't kill people automatically because that might be bad for like all humans.
it turns out
Right.
their technology was used to bomb a girls' school on the first day of the Iran attack, which I don't know who that reflects worse on, the Pentagon or Anthropic. But now the latest news to emerge from the White House is on Friday, they told them their latest models, most advanced LLMs, they told Anthropic, don't let any foreign users have access to them right now. They're too dangerous. You're being reckless with this AI.
Well,
Which seems
this is the latest spinoff of the whole mythos, holy crap moment that, the Trump White House had been David Sachs, full speed ahead, damn the torpedoes. We got to beat the Chinese to general AI. We can't afford to have any stupid government bureaucrats slowing down our great inventors go. And then Anthropic, the careful one, comes back and says, hey, we got this thing called Mythos. And it turns out it can find 20-year-old zero-day exploits within well-established, very closely looked over, heavily used software, some of the most important foundational software on the internet, and finds it like in nothing. And
a bank account. Yeah,
yeah, and all your security and everything else, and could give you control over it's I'm not going to get into these things because it makes my head hurt, but the acronyms for some of the little modules that allow you to control something without having to log in. Like, and they were able
right.
to find these things very quickly. And so the national security guys went, oh, this is a big deal. Let's review. And you may recall we've had a couple of conversations where first it was nothing, then David Sachs was out, and all of a sudden there was going to be something. And then it was a 90-day review, and that was held up, that executive order from Trump, and now it's a 30-day review, and that was just signed, I think, 2 weeks ago. And now we have an actual these guys, and they put out Fable 5, I think is what it's called, from mythos to fable. So there's a theme here, but it is mythically powerful. And it turns out it's powerful enough. It's not just about, you know, marketing. It's enough that the national security guys are like, is this scary?
I know
So
it's just I should be glad that somebody is putting their foot on the brake, but it just seems so erratic and so haphazard and just
you mean like so many things in the Trump administration's efforts to regulate anything or shape anything? I mean, these are not strategic in their approaches. And there are smart people in the Trump administration. Notice Susie Wiles, fine example. Really smart, as chief of staff. But there's a lot of mediocre people running different segments of the organization
right.
who have no background in government, don't understand what this whole
They're just loyalists.
federal
Yeah.
register is and the code of federal regulations is, and just stomp over stuff. And then people getting stomped on go to the courts and say, this violates all this. And the courts go, yep, you're right, stop. And that's what they keep doing. There's not people who know what they're doing. And maybe we should be grateful because it's keeping some of the most egregious, knee jerk, jerky, awful, stupid stuff from going through eventually.
Yeah.
But that's what's
The
going
only
on.
reason why our democracy didn't die in 2020 because he doesn't value competence. He values loyalty. So
Right. Well, find your blessings where you may. That's what I always say. So, that being said, speaking of finding blessings and billionaires who have been very involved in trying to acquire political influence, Peter Thiel, who spent a
right.
lot of money in elections, less so now, got together with some of his disaffected billionaire buddies to make up a kangaroo court called Objection.
Yeah, Aaron DeSouza, the Australian technologist who, with a law background, he has a PhD from Oxford in IP litigation. So I don't know if that makes him a lawyer or technologist. He's billed as the mastermind behind the legal strategy that took down Gawker. And that's how they sell Objection, which is a AI-powered service, which from the folks that bankrupted Gawker, that's how they promote it, comes the first AI tribunal, they call it, a faster, cheaper, and seemingly toothless way that rich folks can smite journalists that wrote something bad about them or just pissed them off. Ostensibly, CIA agents and FBI agents, if you're a well-heeled person who feels aggrieved and wants justice, they'll investigate your case. They'll run the evidence through AI and they'll deliver adjudication, a public verdict on whether journalist X has wronged you or not. Gary Baum at the Hollywood Reporter was the first target. Mr. Baum wrote a story about Michael Sackler, heir to the Sackler Purdue Pharma fortune, OxyContin.
The OxyContin awful
Right.
people who made billions of dollars by saying, oh, this highly addictive thing isn't that addictive, and you can actually have them take more and it'll be fine. And it didn't work out for millions of
Young guy
Americans.
who came to Hollywood. He tried to be a movie producer, and then he became a venture capitalist focused on the sort of ethical investing strategy, he called it. And Mr. Bong suggested this might be identity whitewashing, an attempt to sort of take the stain off where he got his fortune. In Sackler's mind, I was a kid. I'd had nothing to do with any of it. Why, this isn't fair. So there's a case to be made for both, but it doesn't seem like Gary Baum transgressed on the manufacturing of facts. It seems like
There's no actual malice involved in this. And that's a
right.
problem in U.S. libel law. Just because you lay out some facts, which are true, and interpret them however you may under First Amendment protections, and it makes the wealthy son of a terrible family look bad and makes it tougher for him to resume his producing career, which was wholly predicated on the fact that he had access to a bunch of money his family made through enslaving millions of people to highly addictive substances. Oh, well.
What I think is interesting is there's like this, you see it in these news formats that strip out all the bias. I'm so sick of the bias. You have the New York Times on the left and the Fox News on the right, as if they can be remotely compared. The result is nobody trusts media. It was once trust of media used to be 90%. Now it's 33%. That's the pitch. And nobody trusts media because, A, you have the president who's telling a third of the country, or whatever his voting bloc stands at now, don't trust the media. And the fact that you have all this hyper-propagandized media like Fox News. That's why nobody, in my opinion, trusts media. It's also been
It was
stripped down.
happening long before Fox News happened. I mean,
Yeah, there's a lot of
like
reasons.
places like like CBS, the Westmoreland case, wholly problematic. Some of the others that they have been involved in, amid many examples of extraordinary achievements, 60 Minutes had some real super whiffs, and there are plenty of others. The New York Times, the Glass case, whatever his name was, Henry Glass or whoever, people like that were just making stuff up. Those do happen. Oh,
That
New
movie,
Republic, yeah.
Shattered Glass. Have you seen it?
Shattered Glass, that's what it was. I have not seen it.
Oh,
I
it's
did
really
break
good.
some glass the other day, though. Does that count?
Not the same dynamic.
Well, I did really like that glass, though. It was hand
Remember-
blown and beautiful.
Oh, hand blown.
Gorgeous glass.
Yeah, that's tough. It's just, I guess, the lack of understanding of journalism, its reason, its import, it's the nuance and art behind it. It's just when the far right takes over, just an issue like this seems to surface every week, where somebody comes forward and wants to reinvent journalism who has no idea what journalism is. And it seems like
You mean like Barry Weiss? No,
Barry
I
White,
never
Peter
digress.
Thiel. I credit Baum. He used it as an opportunity to interview DeSouza, get into who he is. He's part of a group of very well-educated tech elite, Sam Altman as well. They're all gay, very loaded, very well-educated. They holiday together. They're high-achieving. And a good segment of them are to the very far right and have very dangerous ideas. And
Or they're like waiting for the Antichrist in Peter Thiel's case.
And don't even live here anymore. He's going to be moving to Buenos Aires soon. So anyway.
Well, because Melier is his kind of executive, Mr. Chainsaw.
Anyway.
Or whatever the word for chainsaw is in Spanish. But anyway, Javier Melier.
You can settle, I guess, with
president.
objection. You can settle with whoever is objecting to you before they run your good name through. I think I hear CIA and FBI, it's a chance to sort of like, oh, you wrote about us? We'll find out a little something about you, Mr. Small, lower middle class journalist.
Don't you think they might already know or have access through NQTel to, I don't know, a few AI assets of their own? I'm just thinking they don't need any help from some billionaires to do a quick background search. I'm thinking they're probably pretty good at that already. Maybe not perfect, but probably as good or better than anything Thiel and his pals, his very delicate snowflake pals, could come up with. Just saying.
So state of the web, Dave.
State of the web. Sensor Tower put out its first State of the Web report, and there's a lot of cool data in there. I suggest going to Sensor Tower. It is a fountain of data of all kinds. I know it's the kind of place that makes you pretty excited, Dan, because they just keep putting out more graphics and cool data stuff. But one of the things that was interesting to me that caught my eye was how big a presence Google has compared to everybody else on the web. I mean, between YouTube, Google Search, now Google Gemini, AI, enhanced search, all the other things that they do, they're far and away the biggest presence in web traffic. Other thing that's interesting to me, for the first time in Q1, mobile traffic outstripped desktop traffic as a source. Now that's kind of interesting as we think about where we're going next. I don't think it's just going to be little Ray-Bans with Mark Zuckerberg's, Meta AI llama in there. I think this is really an interesting time for us to evaluate what a mobile device looks like, with the shift to vertical for entertainment, with the rise in traffic, which probably is related in part to all the video now being watched on your mobile phone, by the way. You start to think about, okay, and if we're going to have satellite stuff, not just from Starlink, but Global Star / Amazon through Apple, all of a sudden you can get this stuff anywhere on any mountain you want to be on. I mean, it gets really interesting really quickly about where that goes. So I throw those out there as tidbits as we consider wrapping up, because we both have stuff to do before we fly off to
I want to
beautiful
mention,
Denver.
and I'm not going to get into an assessment of Steven Spielberg's career, but I mentioned to you earlier that I saw Disclosure Day at a movie theater near my house. I won't get into the quality of the movie and I won't spoil it. The only thing I will say about it, there's a scene in which broadcast TV is viewed as a great way to get a message out to a lot of people. And I thought that was interesting at an age where it's just not. I mean, it's just not that many people.
But it is. I mean, that's the great irony. It's like, it still is a bigger audience by far than streaming. It's just not as flexible or capable. Cable is fading, but cable as a way to get your broadcast signal is a way to enhance that, right? And broadcast still gets much bigger numbers, however mediocre the remaining programming is, or formulaic and tiresome of, the 37th Dick Wolf show of the week. That's still a bigger audience than anything you're going to find on cable, and nearly anything you'll find on streaming, right?
I'll argue with you at Denver over beers. Wind us down, Dave.
Okay. Please join us over beers in Denver, or even before that, when we're still sober and nearly functional. We will be putting out a show daily for this here podcast and newsletter, NextTMT at nexttmt.com, and that's TM as in media, T.com, where you can get it free, as well as the audio and video on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you think. But you can comment to us at the bar, or if you want to listen to one of those secret events that nobody gets to get into, that's cool too. We're perfectly fine. We won't tell anybody. It'll be our secret. That being said, have a great time. Hope to see you in Denver. And with that, over and out.